What's up guys, Rich here, and we've got Vero's North Coast, and it's in 40 millimeters, 47 lug to lug. It's just 11 millimeters tall, and it uses a 20 millimeter bracelet or strap width that tapers down to 18 millimeters to the clasp, and it is a double clasp and a really nice bracelet. So the North Coast is part of Vero's open water collection. The other two models are the Ridge Trail and Crown Point, and they all have or are rooted in the Pacific Northwest, and that's because these watches are hand assembled in Portland, Oregon. And part of Vero's saying about their watches is that they are Swiss made, but they are assembled and quality controlled and regulated in the US, and specifically Portland, Oregon. They are a brand that's been around since 2015, so they have been established as more of a trusted and reliable brand. It is certainly a brand that is not a brand new brand. They definitely know what they're doing. And when I say that, it's kind of a funny saying, right? Swiss made, but made in the US, because they kind of, you might think they've just missed the boat of having what still some watch brands and some watch fans still covet, the Swiss made label, although I think that is much less important today. But it's certainly not because they're trying to cut costs on the watch because of having everything done in Switzerland, because we know that the US labor costs are also really expensive too. So it doesn't have anything to do with the cost efficiency, just more of their pride in having watches done in the US, and again, specifically in Portland, Oregon, where everything is done in-house, because that is where they have their headquarters. So, you know, there's a lot of great details on this North Coast, and I was really excited to get my hands on it and talk about it. It certainly looks great in the images, but it's certainly better in person. It has that premium feel in the hand. One of the first things that we're going to notice is this finishing, right? Because this is a bead blasted finishing, really silky smooth. So what is that? What is a bead blasted finishing? Well, the first thing that the coating doesn't have any direction. And what does that mean with no direction? Well, it's sort of like the brushed finishing, right? When there's a brushed finishing, we can see the vertical brush marks on it. This doesn't have any direction is what I'm meaning. It's not exactly clear coated because it does give it that matte gray look, but again, it doesn't have any direction, and it's streak free. So I can rub my fingers all across any portion of the watch, the case, or the bracelet, and it's smudge free. So I actually really like that streak free finishing that the bead blasting allows on here. Some people might call this a bit austere to have the gray dial with the gray case, that gray on gray. But where I think Vero did a really great job is those splashes of light blue around the bezel markers. And I like that combination a lot with the light blue and the gray. It kind of sort of reminds me of the Rolex OP. So that color coordination, I think, works really well on the North Coast. So the North Coast, as I alluded to earlier, is part of the Pacific Northwest theme. It's sort of supposed to remind us of the morning fog in the Pacific Northwest with this entire gray look. And when I said also earlier that they take a lot of pride in making these watches in Portland, Oregon, I'm not joking about that. They spend a lot of details on this watch. I mean, one of the touches we see is this bit of black on the knurling on the crown. It is sandwiched between the two crown guards, and it's not just cosmetic because this is a screw down crown and it's water resistant to 200 meters. It has a sapphire crystal. But the movement that they use here is the Sellita 200 movement, and it's adjusted to 5 positions in-house, and that gives us a plus 5 seconds a day accuracy, and that is a chronometer grade movement. Essentially, that accuracy falls within the COSC standards, which is -4 to +6 seconds a day. So for me, whenever I see a watch brand that works so much or spends so much time on their movement, it suggests a lot about the rest of the watch if they care about the movement, not just the movement choice, but that they work on the movement beyond just putting a branded rotor and giving us an exhibition case back. I think they made the right decision on the solid case back where it says Vero and it gives some specs on the watch. But the adjusting part to 5 positions, I think, is a big deal. And Vero did a really nice job with the accuracy of this movement, because I can verify this falls definitely within that plus 5 seconds a day. The turn action on the bezel is also really well done. nice and taut. Again, I think that color combination with that light blue and that gray works really well. As long as we're sticking with the theme of the Pacific Northwest watches, and while all three models, this North Coast, the Ridge Trail, and Crown Point, have roots in the Pacific Northwest, the branding Vero doesn't have anything to do with Portland, Oregon, or anything with in the Pacific Northwest. Instead, Vero, according to its founder, Chris Bordeaux, means truth in Latin. And he came up with this branding's name because he once bought a watch for his father. Later, he realized that it wasn't quite what he thought that watch was, and he was disappointed. So he believes putting transparency in his watches and knowing where the watches come from and what exactly is done in the U.S. So, and specifically where in the U.S. So it's not QC'd in one state, designed in another state, and then adjusted in another state. It's all done in-house in the same offices in Portland. And that's the part of the transparency, part of the importance of transparency for Vero watches. You know, another thing about Vero is they are original. This watch really doesn't remind me of anything else. It certainly has a really nice look to it. Again, here's that really silky smooth bracelet. And they're not afraid to take chances, including the gray on gray, and with their Ridge Trail with that green dial. They make watches that they want to make, and I think that's been proven to be a really nice interpretation of what we all want in a watch, right? They're not making watches that are trendy or on point. So to me, whenever a watch brand wants to make watches that they want to wear, that usually translates into something really nicely overall for the rest of the watch community. And again, I can attest to this North Coast. It's just a really solid watch, a really comfortable watch, has a lot of originality to it. So if you haven't already figured out, I am a really big fan of the North Coast. But is there an area of feedback that I wouldn't mind providing some input? Yes. Is it a flaw? No, because it doesn't have anything to do with the watch. There isn't anything wrong with the watch as far as I'm concerned. But because this bracelet is so silky smooth, really comfortable, and just nicely finished, I wouldn't mind seeing or adding 2 levers on either side of the clasp. I just think that would make it a little easier for us to open the clasp than how we normally would. It would just be another really nice touch of refinement to this otherwise really fantastic bracelet. It does have 3 micro adjustments right there, and I adjusted it to the smallest point. And I would say that these 3 micro adjustments is probably equivalent to 1 full link. And since we're talking about the bracelet, there is another great level of detail, or I should say a nice service that Vero provides, and it's very rare. They actually allow us to let them remove any links upon sending it to us. So I think that's a great service that we don't often see. And so for me, I let them know that my wrist size is 6.5 inches, and I like to wear my watches snug. So they removed 2 links, and of course they included that with the package. And from there, I just fine-tuned it with a micro adjustment. So the reason I like that, and to me why that's a big deal, is I've never had a watch with a bracelet fit me right out of the box. And so this just makes it really convenient where I don't have to spend any time removing any links or even taking it to the jeweler to do that. I get the same benefits of a watch with a leather strap or a rubber strap where I'm able to enjoy that right out of the box. So a nice service and a really another nice level of detail by Vero to be able to wear a watch with a bracelet right out of the box, especially for those of us with smaller wrists. That just doesn't happen to us very often. So the retail price on the North Coast is $875 as is on the bracelet, or $810 on either a NATO or a gray NATO strap. Here's the gray NATO that comes with it. If I went the NATO direction, I probably would use the navy. I think that contrast would be nice. So I think the price point for what we're getting, again, I'm spending a lot of time on the movement, talking about the importance of adjusting the movement to 5 positions and getting 5 seconds a day. I think this represents a really nice value for what we're getting. They definitely have a clear direction, and you can see that throughout their watches, through all 3 of their different models. The North Coast definitely has a really nice distinct look to it with the case, a lot of nice touches to it, as I mentioned with the crown, functional crown guards, or I mean crown guards with a purpose, not just cosmetic. Really nice look, a really lovely job with the movement. The indices and the handset on the dials is loomed, as well as the markers on the bezel with Swiss Super Luminova. So overall, a really nice package by North Coast. So if we're looking for an everyday tool watch, and I think this watch can be actually dressed down or up, and we want to support a US watch or a watch specifically made in Portland. I think Vero watches are definitely worth a closer look. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you the next time. And I wouldn't call it a flaw because it doesn't have any, oh my goodness. Yep.